Podcast stupidity. All right, I think we're live on everything except YouTube right now. All right, let's start. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Amateurs with Bryce and Jaron. Real stories, real situations, real talk. Now, our guest today, Daniel Poneman, is a Chicago legend in our eyes for sure. With one of the most unique stories in the industry, he's helped so many players that Jaron and I grew up watching and looking up to, but also players that we played with and against get traction when it comes to recruiting, college scholarships, the whole nine. DP's done a lot of great things in his career already. As a high school student, he managed to help athletes get recruited by building his own recruiting service. Organizing all-star games and showcases. He's also produced a film with Dwayne Wade and Chance the Rapper, and now represents athletes as an agent. DP, you haven't taken the cookie cutter route or traditional route by any means to do any of this. So I'm super excited to have you on for my personal reasons. I know Jaron as well, and we also look forward to sharing your story with our listeners. But thank you for coming on, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm really happy to be here and excited. That was a really dope intro video. I like that with the graphics and everything. You guys, I've been on a lot of podcasts, but this one's exciting because I've watched both you guys grow up and been around you guys for a long time. So it's cool to see it come full circle. You guys get to have me on for an interview. It's pretty cool.
1,000%. Yeah, you're usually the one doing the interviewing, man. So it's kind of cool to switch places with you, man.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. It's funny, Jaron, I've known you for a long time, but I feel like when you were younger, you were always kind of quiet. Yeah. And now for you to be hosting a podcast, change that, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was kind of the point of us doing this. Neither one of us are really, I guess, like outgoing when it comes to just like talking and things like that. We grew up kind of quiet, but we want to step out of our comfort zone. Saw opportunity to do that. So that's basically how this came about.
Cool. How many episodes have you done?
What is this, like 18? Just
18.
under 20?
Yep.
18, yeah.
That's dope. I feel like a lot of people talk about, when I finish my playing career, I want to get into media, I want to do this. You guys just both finish playing, just jump right into it. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. So, before we get into the actual episode, we do have a game on our show called the 1 Minute Warm Up. It's an opportunity for us to help the listeners get to know you. We have 10 to 11 questions. You have a minute to answer the questions, one skip. And we can jump right into it.
All right, let's go. So I have to answer these questions in a minute. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Got one skip. All right. On the first question, Jaron. All right. What is your favorite sports movie?
Shot in the Dark.
Okay. How would you describe yourself in one word?
Curious.
Best sporting event that you've ever attended?
Oh boy. Duke, Wisconsin. Championship game when Frank Kaminsky and Jahlil Okafor were playing against each other.
That's tough. Who has had the greatest impact on your life?
My parents.
Which sport do you watch the least?
I only really watch basketball and football. I don't watch anything else.
Same here. What is one thing that you enjoy outside of sports?
Reading.
Favorite high school basketball player of all time?
Derrick Rose.
Oh, that's easy. Okay.
Jeremy Richmond.
Gotcha. What is one thing that you can't live without?
My girlfriend, my partner Amelia.
Love it. Favorite music artist of all time?
Probably. I'm going with Spenzo.
Okay. And the last one was favorite NBA player growing up.
Sean Kemp.
That's tough. But that was crazy that you brought up. Shot in the dark. We'll get into that a little later. But also Jeremy Richmond. Before the swag era days, you were talking to some of our heroes. Jeremy Richmond, of course Anthony Davis, the guys that we looked up to. So we'll definitely get into that.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I could talk about Jeremy Richmond all day.
Yeah, legend, man. Chicago legend for sure. So where did your love, for basketball actually originate from?
Well, I mean, my dad played college ball, so basketball for me was something that was like in my blood from the start. I grew up an Iowa Hawkeye fan, My dad played college. He played D2 at Brandeis in Boston. So I wasn't one of those kids who got started playing really early. My dad wasn't like a basketball dad. He didn't push me into the game early. I really didn't start playing until 4th grade, which almost like I was almost, as I got older, almost like resentful. Like, man, Dad, why didn't you get me started in kindergarten? I would have been better, you know?
Right.
But I was kind of a natural at it because it was, I had athletic genes. But my first real competitive basketball experience was playing small fry. Did you guys play small fry?
Yeah, we did. We played for Miss Foster.
Yeah, you played for Miss Foster.
Yeah.
I love her. It's one of my favorite people in the world. I played for Evan small fry. That was really my first time actually getting into the city and playing in different tournaments and getting really exposed to the kind of the culture side of things. And then, the rest is history.
Man.
I did not know you played small fry. What team did you play on?
Evanston. It was Evanston small fry. So I don't know if by the time you guys played, if it was still around, but Chris Colvin's dad, Ike, was one of our coaches.
Chris Colvin, yeah.
Yeah, we had a few. Chris was too tall to play. We had a few good players on our team. We went to the tournament in Florida. I remember we played against like the Puerto Rican teams down there. Really good.
Right.
I remember when I was playing small fry, Ahmad Starks was the best player in any of the tournaments. He played for and one small fry. He was like the man in the small fry circuit.
Yes.
Another Chicago great.
For sure.
We moved up for varsity last year, rookie, and we got to see Tyler Eulis play. Clearly the best player out there, of course. And then the following year for our varsity year, we actually made it to the championship, played Bucabla, which is like the best, Puerto Rican team. So that was a great experience.
Yeah. I can't even imagine watching Tyler Eulis could probably play small fry till 8th grade. We could still play small fry, but he must have been a legend in small fry. He was so good.
For sure.
Yeah. It's funny how small fry in Chicago is a big thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's big in our basketball culture growing up, especially.
Yeah, and it's funny. I remember it's like a bizarre thing, like how you have to measure in, you have to be under a certain height. And I remember like kids, you measure in like this to try. And the only other place I've seen that. So, as an agent, I work in Korea and in the Philippines sometimes, and they have certain leagues over there that have height limits. So the same thing happens. I had a client that 2 years ago, the Korean, there's like a height limit for the imports, the American players in Korea. So one of the Korean coaches said, I want to come watch your player work out, yada, yada. But really, he just wanted to come to measure him to see if he was going to be short enough. So it was like small fry all over again. He had him like standing up against the wall like this, trying to get him. Right. He was a power forward. He was trying to get him to measure in at like 6'3".
That's crazy. I didn't know that there were leagues like the pro leagues where you had to be a certain height or under a certain height. But as you mentioned, you're now an agent. You've also produced a film, managed artists. But let's start from the beginning. In high school, again, you started Swag Air. And Jan and I talk about this all the time. We kind of alluded to it earlier. But before Baller's Life, there were two media outlets that we wanted to be a part of or wanted to have our name on. One was a Chicago Hoops article, and the other was an interview for Swag Air. So it is crazy that we're doing this now. But could you tell our listeners a bit about what Swag Air was and how that even came about?
Yeah, so I went to Evanston High School, North Side. Grew up playing ball. Grew up playing with a lot of good players. Again, guys like Chris Colvin, Jeremy Richmond, Alex Dragovich, Matt Vogrich, Jack Cooley. The guys in the north suburbs when I was growing up were really talented. It was kind of the early days of the basketball blogs, so pre-social media. So when I was a freshman in high school, I started a website. At the time, it was called IllinoisHSBasketball.com, where I would write about players, rank players, and really utilize. I was lucky that I was kind of early in the social media era. I was able to utilize social media to get in contact with players, to gather information. I started out calling guys home phones. Get their home phone number on Facebook, trying to get interviews for my website. And then sometime, along the way when I was in high school, maybe like my sophomore, junior year, YouTube came out. Like it was like a new thing. No one was really on YouTube. So I was really one of the first people that was able to make that transition from being a writer to putting my interviews and highlight videos on YouTube. So early on, I was going to AU tournaments around the country. I was able to get interviews with like Austin Rivers, Harrison Barnes, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, when they were in high school. And, it was great for my personal branding too, because if you were at that time to look up on YouTube, Kyrie Irving personally, interviewing him.
Right,
so I was
right.
able to build a personal brand for myself by kind of leveraging the celebrity of these youth basketball stars. And now it's a huge industry. Right now, if you look up, Josh Green or Paige Cunningham, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. At the time, I was the only one really doing it. And then with Ball is Life and Hoop Mixtape and, like Overtime, that wasn't even a thing. That's the biggest thing in the years back then. It was me with I had like a little pocket camera, a little 720p pocket camera that I did everything on. I was so low tech that when I'd be interviewing one player on the team, I'd have to get one of his teammates to hold the camera. I didn't even have a camera.
That's crazy. I actually thought about that today because we were today and yesterday we were watching a few of the interviews, and I was wondering like if you had a cameraman, if you had a team. Or, I guess in high school, that probably wasn't really feasible.
It's funny. I was watching back an old interview recently of Mike Shaw.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the interview, I was like, shout out to the cameraman, Anthony Davis. And I had Anthony hold the camera for Mike's interview and Mike hold the camera for Anthony's interview. It's funny though, like it was cool because I had this little camera that fit in my pocket. But my mom used to always get on me like, you got to get a better camera. You got let me buy it for you. Let me buy you a microphone. I'm like, Mom, like I know what I'm doing. Like I got this. And I look back at my old footage. I'm like, man, I wish I had a better camera.
Exactly. But I mean, you were definitely ahead of your time, like you said, before Ball is Life, Who Mixtape, man. I was definitely watching Swag Air before games. One of my favorite was Derek Randolph, man. I used to watch that all the time, bro. All the time.
Man, so many legends that like we know about in our city that the world never really got to see. Like I still talk to Derek, and he had a couple stints in college and never really broke through. But man, he was cold in high school. He was different.
Different for sure. And you were in high school doing all of this, but I was wondering like what was your North Star during this time? I guess like what did you see as your end goal?
Well, for me, I didn't really have an end goal. I was in high school. I was just doing it because it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I think a lot of times in life you succeed at the things that you're maybe not doing it because of an end goal. You're doing it because you enjoy the journey, you enjoy the process, you enjoy the act of it. If you're just doing something as a means to an end, it's going to feel like work. But I was able to make a career out of it. But and at the time, I wasn't thinking like I'm going to be a big time agent. I'm going to be on TV. No, for me, it was just like I loved high school basketball. It was my favorite thing, and I was able to be relevant in that space by working at it. Not as a player, but on the media side. So my North Star was, and the other cool thing was about what I was doing was that I was getting like immediate feedback. Like I think a lot of times you go to college, you're doing homework, and it's like this goal down the road that you want to reach. You're not getting the job for, you go to medical school, it's 10 years before you're a doctor, before you get to stay.
For sure.
But for me, I was able to create a video, put it out that night, and the next morning I'm getting comments, I'm getting messages, I'm getting likes, and you're getting that immediate feedback. So I love going to a game, and I'll go right home, edit it, throw it up, and by the next morning, I was getting all that feedback. I would stay up all night. I'd upload it to YouTube and Facebook, and I would tag everyone on Facebook. So that by the time we wake up, they'd already have it on their page, and I love that immediate feedback I got from it. And I love being able to blow up a player too. Like you see something, you see a player that people don't know about, you make that highlight video and then watch their life change the next morning when that video goes out and all the colleges start hitting them up, and it's like you can watch in real time someone's life change. Like that was a really cool feeling. So I guess that was my North Star, was just like how cool it was that I got to be a part of that process in real time.
For sure.
That's actually a perfect segue because I want to talk about Anthony Davis. You've definitely helped literally hundreds of kids receive college scholarships. But the most notable is probably Anthony Davis. And everybody knows his story, the crazy growth spurt towards the end of his high school career. But a lot of people may not know that you played a huge role in helping him to get more traction. But let's take it back a little bit. Like you knew him before the growth spurt, so like 6'2" guard. What did Anthony Davis's game look like at that point?
Well, so it's funny. The first time I saw Anthony he was in 8th grade. I was a sophomore, and I was planning to run my first showcase event. Was an 8th grade All-Star game. Coach Terry Head at Poneman told me I could use his gym if I ran an 8th grade All-Star game. So he was smart on Terry's part because I was going to do all the work to get all the top 8th graders he could recruit to his school.
Exactly.
So it was cool. So I remember I went out recruiting for that event. And I had commitments from guys like Ryan Boatwright, who was already committed to USC, Jacob Williams, who was going to St. Pat. So it was like some good players. But there was a Chicago Select AAU team that had Anthony Davis, Wayne Blackshear, Tyrone Stagger, Taiwan Pickney, Alphonse Matthews. It had all these players, and Anthony wasn't even a starter. He was the sixth man. He was like a 6'2" shooter. But he was also like he played versatile defender. You know, he could rebound, he could shoot, but like he wasn't really the man. He was kind of like this skinny kid. But I could see at the time that he kind of had something. So I invited him to play in my All-Star game, even though he wasn't a starter. I remember he couldn't come to the game. He had like 8th grade graduation that day or something. But like he was, yeah. I mean, he was. I could tell he was going to be good. I thought he reminded me of a young Evan Turner because you could tell he was long. I thought he was going to maybe be 6'5", 6'6". Right. I thought he could be a good D1, maybe like wing or guard. Mm-hmm. Next time I saw him, though, was 3 years later, and he was 6'8" at that point, and the rest is history.
Definitely, man, that's crazy. So when he did have the growth spurt, of course, like a 6'8", 6'9" kid is going to get recruited. Could you even imagine him to go on and win a national championship at Kentucky, play for the Lakers, win a championship there, first-round draft pick? Was that even imaginable at that point?
Yeah, honestly, when I saw him that first day after he hit his growth spurt, at the time, his only offer was Cleveland State. But I could tell within 10 minutes of watching him, like I didn't know he was going to be a Hall of Famer, but I knew he was unlike anything I'd seen before. You know, sometimes I think people overthink talent evaluation. Like, it's not rocket science. There's real rocket scientists out there that have to figure out how to send rockets to the moon. We just got to throw the guy and put a ball in a hoop. It's for not sure. So you're watching him, and I'm like, okay, I've never seen anything like this. He was blocking shots. He would catch the block, lead the break, dunk, come back, block a shot, do the same. Is okay, I've never seen anything like this. So I knew at that point he was the best player in the state, probably one of the best players in the country. And then he gets, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", and just keeps getting better along the way. I remember that second day I saw him after he hit his growth spurt. He went up against Nana Igwu, and Nana was like ranked 60th in the nation, committed to Illinois, and Anthony kicked his ass. It's like, all right, my language. I'm not supposed to curse on this pod.
Oh, you good.
And at that point, I was like, all right, well, if he just dominated the 60th ranked player in the country, where is he going to fall? And I remember having a lot of debates that year. Some people thought Andre Drummond was the best player in the country. Other people thought Austin Rivers, but I stayed on the Anthony. And I guess I proved to be right at the end of the day.
Man, that's crazy. What advice would you give to the high school athletes out there on to get to be recruited? What advice do you have for them to put themselves in the best situation to be recruited?
To be honest, like my advice is if you're good enough, they'll find you. You look at I just watched the Rockets game last night. I was just over at the hotel with one of my clients on the Rockets, and they have a guy in training camp with him named Broderick Thomas. I don't know this guy, I never met him, but I followed his story. Went to Bolingbrook High School, went to a D2, grew a little bit at the D2, became a really good player. Now he's in training camp with the Rockets out of a D2. So it's like, my point is I think a lot of times people try so hard to get recruited or over-recruited or get exposure. You got to be ranked as a freshman. And I just listed that team that Anthony played for. No offense to these guys, because I keep in touch with a lot of them to this day, but Taiwan Pickney, Alphonse Matthews, Tyrone Staggers, those guys were the man in 8th grade freshman year. They were the top ranked guys, and no one was talking about Anthony. Well, those guys, started out hot, but Anthony went to a school where no one was even watching their games, and he ended up being number one pick in the draft. So my advice to getting recruited is get better, improve, have good grades, put yourself in a position that's going to want schools to recruit you. If you have good grades, if you're very responsive in communication, if your coach says positive things, that's one thing. One of the biggest red flags when I recruit a player for my agency is ask them, okay, if you had a rough year or something, ask them what went wrong. If they blame the coach, I'm out. Because a lot of times you see those guys where it's always the coach's fault. It's never their own fault. Even if the coach don't like you or it's difficult to play for this and that, that's on you to figure out how to work around that. That's an obstacle in your life. How are you working around that coach not being on the same page as you? So you can see what you need. Because if you let that coach defeat you, that's on you. You're playing the victim, and you're not taking accountability. You're not having a growth mindset. So I would say, and that's what people don't get is college coaches are going to ask your coach about you. And if that coach doesn't say good things, they're not going to want to coach you either. No one's going to talk to a coach and have a player say, oh, he's uncoachable, and they're going to offer you a scholarship. So I would say have good grades, have a good reputation with your coach, be responsive in communication, and just work on your game. Be a good team player. Have good body language on the court, and they'll find you. You don't need to pay for the expensive scouting services and camps. Like, you're all right, if you've got it, you got it.
And that's actually great advice, man. I know that for you, when it came to college, you had the opportunity to join Northwestern's staff as one of the team managers. Obviously, you chose not to go to college, and I mean, look who you are today. What factors went into that decision, and what did you learn from betting on yourself? I think it might be frozen.
I lost you for a second. You got me?
Yeah.
I heard the question. You said, sorry, my computer froze up. You said, what factors went into me making the decision to not go to Northwestern?
Yeah, and what did you learn from betting on yourself?
Yeah, so it's funny. I get that a lot, where people be like, "All right, well, you didn't go to college, so how are you going to tell kids that they need to go to college, or help guys go to? Why shouldn't everyone?" I had a young person that I mentor call me recently. Is like, Dan, I don't want to go to college just like you. I just want to do X, Y, and Z. I was in a unique situation. I had a whole business. I had revenue stream. I had a platform. Like, I was in a unique situation. I was able to do that. I also, to be honest, I had the luxury of a safety net. I had a family that supported me, where if I fell on my ass, I could go back and live at home. I did have that structure where if I went out and I messed up, all right, I could just try again next year and go to college next year.
Right.
I was in a different situation than a lot of people. But for me, it was a matter of, I was good friends with the coach at Northwestern, Tavares Hardy, and he basically said, Dan, again, he was smart. He said, Dan, I want you to be a manager on our staff. Obviously it was a great opportunity for me, but it was great for him too, because I was going to probably bring a lot of players with me too,
Right.
But what a good relationship. But it kind of honestly occurred to me that, all right, if I'm on staff as a manager at a school, I'm not going to be able to continue to run a recruiting site, because there's going to be all types of NCAA red tape around that. So I really was faced with the decision: cash out, basically say, all right, I did this website, I did this thing, and it got me to Northwestern. Cool, I'm going to cash out and do that, or keep rolling with it. I decided to keep rolling with it because, again, it was like, I'll go to Northwestern, I'll get $200,000 in student loans, or I could have no loans, give it a shot, and just see if I can make it on my own. And if I fail, all right, cool. Let's go to college now. So I gave it a shot. And the thing is, my story, you can look at it as, popular high school basketball website, doesn't go to college, NBA agent, cool story, right?
Right.
There's a lot of struggle along that way. I'm 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's a big difference from being kind of a child star, where it's like, oh, he's popping for being in high school. Oh, I make good money for being in high school, to I'm on my own. I got an apartment. I'm trying to figure out how to be an adult. I didn't have, when most 19, 20-year-old kids are learning how to be an adult in college with other college students, where you're all teaching each other, you're growing up together. I was alone trying to figure it out. And it was difficult at times, and I fell on my ass and failed a lot. And there were times along the way that I questioned the decision, thought about applying to school. There were probably 3 or 4 different instances between age 17 and 21 where I pulled up applications. I was ready to apply to go to school and give up. But every single time there was something that kind of fell in my lap that got me to keep going, pushing, almost like the universe saying, like, all right, don't give up now. And now I'm grateful for that period, because I got a lot of failing out of the way before when other guys were graduating college, entering the real world, I had already been hit in the face a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I kind of got the hang of this thing now.
For sure. Definitely, man. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, that's definitely a crazy story. But DP, you've worn a lot of, different hats within the industry, one of those being a film producer. Can you explain to the listeners what Shot in the Dark, is about, and how did you make that come to life?
Yeah. So again, I mentioned kind of some of those times where I was down and out and something kind of fell out of the sky to keep me going. And Shot in the Dark was one of those things. I was 21 years old. I had, moved out of the house, kind of fell on my face, moved back with my parents in Evanston, trying to figure out my next move. Swag Air wasn't rolling as much as it was at a certain point. I kind of got burnt out and lost the steam. And I was kind of trying to figure out my next move. I had two friends who were filmmakers from New York who went to Evanston High School with me, who reached out. And this was at a time in about 2011, 2012, when Chicago was in the news for all the wrong reasons. This was like Chief Keef was blowing up, and it was all about, gangs, murder, crime rate, murder rate's the highest it's ever been, murder capital. That was all people talked about. That was the headlines. And they wanted to tell a story. These filmmakers reached out to me about telling a story about the human side of that. Instead of just putting a murder rate, the numbers out there. All right, let's tell an honest story of someone who's living inside of that. And it's funny, like initially when they reached out, they asked about Jabari Parker. And I basically said, hey, I don't think this is the right story to tell, because Jabari isn't like, that's, if you want to tell an honest, true story, that's not Jabari, because Jabari is kind of not immune from that, but like his life, he's a number one player in the country. Dad played in the league.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the every person Chicago story. So we ended up with Taekwon Greer at Orr. And Taekwon was, not as highly rated of a player as Jabari, but he was 6'6", D1 prospect, talented kid, but like he had everything that could go wrong, and his life was going wrong. His house had just burned down. His mother had just had some health issues. She had to move in with a friend's family. Like, everything was going wrong, but he still had this positive outlook on life. And I thought, all right, this is our guy. So initially we were going to just do a 10-minute like mini doc. We were just going to film for like a couple weeks. The movie came out 7 years later. But yeah, it was just like, for me personally in my journey, it gave me like a purpose. Like when I was 15 years old, when I'm making highlight videos, I loved that. I wanted to go in the gym and make highlight videos, do interviews. When I'm 20, 21 years old, it wasn't as cool for me to go interview 15, 16-year-old kids. Then it became a job. It wasn't something that like excited me. But when I realized that my city was getting misrepresented and I had an opportunity to tell a true story for the world to see what was really happening, I was like, all right, this is cool. This is special. Like, and it gave me a newfound purpose. So every day we would wake up, drive from Evanston to Orr High School on the west side, turn on the cameras and just start rolling. We didn't really know what the film was going to be. But, we filmed from Taekwon and then sophomore year through senior year, through college. And then the movie ended up coming out on Fox in 2018.
Yeah, and I got a chance to see it. It definitely, you all definitely did a great job of, like you said, depicting like a human story to like those statistics and everything.
For sure.
And I didn't even know that some of that stuff happened. Like when I was watching it, of course, I didn't know that you all were filming. I didn't know that he had gotten shot, and then they went on to win play downstate and things like that. So it was definitely a great story.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was filming it, people knew me as like the YouTube guy. They saw me with Orr all the time, and they're like, "What is he doing? Like, why are you filming it? I've never seen this on YouTube. Like, what are you doing?" And I you could tell people like, "Oh, I'm making a movie," but they don't like, all right, like a YouTube movie, like no, a movie. Like, people didn't get it until it dropped, and then sometimes, again, I talked about earlier with my highlight videos, I was getting that immediate gratification, that immediate feedback. Well, this was the most delayed feedback.
Right.
Didn't see the light of day for 7 years from the first day of filming, but when it came out, it was all worth it.
Man, and Morgan Park, we played a huge part in that too. We end up I don't want to really speak on it, but we end up beating Orr and then winning state that year. But we end up
I forgot you're in the movie.
right. But yeah, so let's transition into Swag Air and the showcases you put on for Chicago for the unsigned high school basketball players. What was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So for me, when I was younger, the first showcase I ran for seniors was my senior year of high school. And honestly, to be honest, like the initial impetus for it was making money. I was like, all right, I'm a senior in high school. I got this platform. I'm going out on my own soon. I got to turn this into some revenue. All right, there's a lot of unsigned seniors that have talent, and there are a lot of college coaches who I know. All right, so let me run this camp. I'm going to charge money for the players, charge money for the coaches, and college coaches can recruit unsigned seniors. So that first year I did it at Joy of the Game up in Deerfield, which is now doesn't exist anymore. But first year, the event was very successful as far as like matching players with scholarships, but I lost money because what I found was a lot of the best players who I wanted to have in the event didn't have the $75 to play. And I remember it's kind of like a turning point for me was like, I had a friend named Vlado who was a volunteer assistant at Dunbar, and he had like 5 kids. He's like, none of them have money, Dan. So I was like, all right, just like, give me $100 for all of them, and they can all come play. So Coach Vlado paid me, and 2 of them got scholarships. It kind of occurred to me like, all right, how many kids are missing out on the opportunity to go to college for free because they don't have the $50 for an event? So I had the idea to do it as a nonprofit event, raise money from donations, raise money from sponsors, let all the best unsigned seniors in the city play for free, match them up with college coaches, whether it's D2s, D3s, NAIs, JUCOs, and just do it as kind of like a matchmaking event. And then a few years later, the first few years of that, I was just raising money online, friends, family, Facebook fundraisers. But then Evan Turner came through, heard about what we were doing, and he blessed us. Check. He said, Dan, I don't want anybody to ever pay for this event again. It's going to be free. Give me the bill. So
it's huge.
Yeah. And from that point on, it just grew and grew because we really had the resources to make it great. And last year we couldn't have it because of COVID, but the previous year there was 270 players participated, all seniors from Chicago that mostly didn't have any offers at the time of the event. We had 130 college coaches last year, and over 50 kids ended up accepting offers from schools that were at the event. So it's a pretty cool thing to say, all right, we were able to turn maybe a budget of $50,000 into $5 million in scholarships. It's almost like alchemy. It's like you turn a little something into something big. And for me, becoming an agent, it was important to me that I didn't abandon that mission and say, all right, I'm going to go make millions with the superstars and abandon the guys who will never be pros. I feel like it's almost my obligation, my responsibility as an NBA agent, making money with the top players from Chicago, that we do reinvest some of that money, that we do invest some of those resources in that platform into the kids that won't be pros. It's only right. You can't go and make millions and then hoard it for yourself. And that's what Evan Turner did. Evan got that $70 million contract from the Blazers. He said, all right, let me use some of this money to bless the kids who are never going to see money like that, but all right, they could get a free education. So I feel like that's what it's all about. And that's why that mission is still so important to me, even now that I've kind of moved on in my career.
Love it. And that's another great transition into the next question. Again, we appreciate everything you're doing for the city and have done for so long. But now that you've co-founded, Beyond Athlete Management, congrats again on the success, in this past draft and in the off season. But I know that hasn't always been, your North Star. You haven't always had your sights set on being an agent. Was there a specific event that occurred that helped you to realize that you should actually give athlete representation a shot?
Honestly, I resisted this route for a long time. When I was growing up in the business, I got exposed to a lot of agents, and a lot of them were people that I didn't respect or admire, and I didn't want to be like them. I saw all the stereotypes of an agent that you might see on TV, like fancy cars, and, it was all about the money. And that wasn't me. I was about the community. I was running a nonprofit. I was thinking I was just going to do that. But I think it was kind of a series of events that pushed me into it. Was a lot of players that I came up with would finish college and reach out to me and ask me for help with their pro career. So I got to see, okay, guys trust me and are asking me for this help. And I'm maybe introducing them to different agents that I know. But if I don't have an agent in my circle that I really trust, that is doing it the right way, and I'm not willing to take that step myself, then I'm doing a disservice to my community. If I feel like our top athletes from our city need the proper representation that are going to guide their lives and careers the right way, it's only right that I step up and do it. But it was a long time that I resisted it. People were telling me I should have been an agent from the time I was in high school. I never wanted to do it. If I knew back then that I was going to do this, I would have done it a whole different way. But, everything happens for a reason. So I got certified when I was about 24, 25 years old. And here I am now, co-founded Beyond Athlete Management about 3 years ago, and we're having great success. But yeah, it wasn't really one moment. It was kind of years of resistance that I kind of fell into it.
Yeah, gotcha. I was telling Bryce off air too. The last time I had seen you was the drive lottery, and I told him, like, man, DP's an agent now. I was like, that's crazy. Like, I wasn't surprised at all, but it just kind of fit like it fit you. You know what I'm saying? Like it was bound to happen. You know what I'm saying? Just was the type of person you are. So I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah, it's funny. Like once I started doing it, once I got my first few clients, I was like, oh shit, like. This is natural. Like I've been doing this for a decade.
Already, yeah.
Exactly what I've been training for and didn't realize I was training for. Like, again, some people could graduate law school and read the collective bargaining agreement and learn the salaries and the rosters and try and be an agent. But it's like I went to agent school for 10 years before I got my first client. So for me, it's very intuitive and it's just natural. And it's yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for half my life. I'm 29. Started when I was 14. So it's just, I think a lot of people had that same reaction as you, Jaron, where they're like, oh, this is what you should have been doing. This makes sense. And not to say that it's been easy. I'm still learning, lessons along the way. And I've got other good agents at my company who are more experienced than me, who can make sure I'm not making any mistakes and, check my work and work alongside me. But, for the most part, it's been pretty natural for me to make that transition.
Right. And you broke into the sports industry, like we said, in an unconventional way. But do you have any advice for young professionals or, college students on how they can get, their first start in the sports industry?
I would say a few things. The advice I would have for college students in general, whether you want to get into sports or anything else, is read books, read a lot of books. For me, one reason why I was comfortable not going to college, because I made a commitment to myself. All right, if I'm not going to be educated the traditional way, I still need to be educated. I need to read. I need to always be learning. So for me, reading a lot is something that, that I credit to any of my successes. If I ever need answers or guidance, I can always fall back on books. And it doesn't have to be self-help, doesn't have to be business books. You could just read nonfiction. You could read what books you connect with, you like, that something that draws you in. Read what you like to read, but read a lot. And I think that you'll always find the answers you need in books. Next step I would say is find ways to be self-starters and provide value like you guys. You got out of college, you say, all right, we're going to start a podcast. Things come together. You're on the Rising Coaches platform. That's an extremely credible platform that's pushing you because you guys decided that you were going to go out and do it. You didn't wait for someone to hand it over to you. You went out and did it. And I think that's another thing is I get a lot of emails from people, hey, can I have a job? Can I have an internship? But a lot of times I'll pay more attention when people say, hey, I have this to offer. Here's a specific skill I'll do for free. I have one intern, I'll tell you a story. I have one intern who was a video coordinator or a team manager for a Division I school, handling all the video stuff. And he reached out to me and said, hey, Dan, I'm an expert at Synergy, which is a video platform you guys want. And if you need anybody chopping up Synergy for your clients, I'll do it for free. Let me know. Bet. I used him after every game. I mean, last night he chopped up, the Rockets and the Kings games for me, and we sent it to our. Well, an NBA GM asked me a few weeks ago if I had any recommendations for a good intern. And I recommended it. And now he has an internship with an NBA team because he was willing to work and provide a skill that I needed. And he was on time. He was reliable. Everything I asked for, if he had to stay up till 3 a.m., he provided it for me on time and never complained. And he was the first one that came to mind when an NBA team asked me. So I guess that's a lot, but that would be my advice for anyone trying to get into sports.
For sure. I mean, that's great advice. Continuously learning and looking to add value. I don't think you can lose with that. But, preseason has just started. And actually, Tyrell Terry, I wasn't going to mention this before, but he gave us the easiest 20-point double-double last year as a freshman. super embarrassing, but preseason just started. Obviously, it's a quick turnaround for everyone involved with the league. But what does your day-to-day look like as an agent in previous seasons, and then how has that changed now that we're in a pandemic and of course things look different now?
This season's a lot different. It's I was just with one of my clients talking like it's the season's condensed. It's game on, off day, game on, off day. The whole world's different. Basketball's no different. Like, yeah, there are some different challenges we've had to go through. The pre-draft off-season period for our rookies was 8 months instead of 3.
Yeah.
There was no summer league, training camp. So many different things about the way that this season is going. The draft, when you talk about Tyrell Terry, for him, it was probably tough on him. The draft got pushed back 4 times. So psychologically, you think you're working towards a date, and then they tell you it's another month. But we still work in basketball, and it's still a blessing. And our industry has not been hit as hard as the restaurant industry, the bar industry. So I think where we're at in the world right now, everybody's adjusting. Everybody's trying to figure out what's next and what the future holds, and none of us know. And all we can do is kind of, as agents, is make sure our players are safe and healthy, and adapt as best we can to whatever happens in the world, and try to make the most of it.
100%.
Yeah. But before we go, man, is there a quote or a mantra that you live by that you would like to share with the listeners?
Oh man, it's funny. I was just thinking about this before I got on. Like, when I get to talk, like, one of my favorite parts of my job is that I get access to a lot of college coaches and pro coaches, and the wisdom that they have. These are people that would pay $10,000 for a speech from these guys, and I get to have conversations. So I always ask them, do you have one piece of wisdom? Do you have one piece of advice? And I like to write it down. I don't know what mine would be, though. I guess here's one. Here's a funny one. I have one thing I'd like to tell NBA players that I won't say who this came from, but this is an NBA OG who played 20 years in the league. And it's one of those guys who looks the same when he retires when he got in the league. And he always tells young players in the league, his advice for longevity is stick with one woman, don't smoke too much weed, drink a lot of water, and get to bed by 10 o'clock. If you do those things, you're going to stick in the league. And I think that applies to everybody. Maybe different aspects of it, but just kind of like get to bed early, don't party too hard and go crazy, drink a lot of water, and read a lot of books, and things will probably work out for you.
Yeah,
definitely,
little
man.
things,
definitely, man. But again, yeah. I mean, we want to be mindful of your time. Again, I know that you still have a few obligations. Always on call as an agent. So thank you again for joining us. This was great. Really appreciate it.
I had a great time, man. This is again really cool for me to see you too. And I was tracking both of your college careers. I was hoping I could have put up some bigger numbers, could have signed. But when I saw Ty, kill William and Mary, I knew I needed him. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
You're in. I'm really excited for you guys and your career, and excited to be one of your first guests. Happy to come on again anytime, and continue growing with you guys and following your journey. So thanks for having me on, and this was fun.
Of course.
Thanks, DP. Appreciate you, man.
All right, guys.